Good morning, everyone. This morning I'm going to be reading from the NRSV, but I invite you to open your Bibles and make notes if you want to, because the NRSV does translate it differently, but it is actually a little more accurate from the Greek. So I'm going to take these verses just a few at a time. So I'm starting with verses 1 through 3 in John chapter 15. Listen now to God's word. Jesus said, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You all have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you." I have to confess that I used to worry so much about this passage. In fact, it scared me because it sounded like if I didn't do a good job bearing fruit, God would throw me out of his vineyard. That somehow my performance in serving God could be grounds for losing Christ's saving work and his love. Well, if you have ever felt that way, or if you feel it even now, there is some very, very good news to hear this morning. In the first 3 verses, there is an amazing wordplay going on that we can't get a full picture of in our English translations. The NRSV folks did do a good job in the first verse when they called God the vine grower, because this parable is about growth, and it is not about condemnation. And that it is all about my growth is found in an incredible play on words in the Greek text. As we'll see as we go through it this morning, Jesus kept going back and forth between a branch referring to you and me as a person in Christ, and a branch referring to aspects of our lives in Christ. So stay tuned. To get to the meaning of these first 3 verses, we have to work backwards. In verse 3, Jesus made a powerful declaration, and the whole rest of this parable builds upon it. And what he said was, "You all have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you." And in this verse, there is a word, katharos. And what it means literally is both being cleansed and pruned. It is the word from which we get our English word catharsis. And so, that I am already cleansed and pruned says that you and I are justified. We are pronounced righteous by the grace of God. And so Jesus is saying to all of his followers, you are made clean. You are declared acceptable. And you are purified or pruned by the word that I have spoken. In other words, it is both Christ's saving message and his saving ministry on our behalf that have worked together to graft us into himself, to graft us into his life and his redemption. And so the word Christ has spoken is all about the grace and the love he gives and the truths he teaches. And when we receive all these gifts, we are in the vine. It is a done deal. But the other side of this parable is this, that once I am in the vine, I am simultaneously being pruned which is the ongoing work of being made clean. Being pruned is about the removal of things that hinder my growth. And that is what the second verse means. Every branch in me is not about being removed from Christ. You always have to remember that Jesus said in John 6 that he will not lose any of us who have become his. But that verse is about the parts of our lives that God wants to purify. It's about removing the parts of my life that are obstacles to my growth. And that is the meaning of our English word catharsis, isn't it? It means to purge me of my deepest seated fears and problems. And so this cleansing and this pruning is foundational for the rest of my Christian life. And it is the means by which that life flourishes. I have this image in my head. When I was a kid, my grandma Hoener would let me help her work in her garden. I still remember these shears that she had. She'd always ask me to get them from their perch on the garage wall. They were ancient shears, and they had this sweet smell of lubricating oil and sap and earth. They were about half of their former size and a little misshapen, but they could still slice hairs down the middle because they'd been sharpened for so many years, so many times. And I remember I'd watch her prune plants in her garden. Her eye was as clear and intense as a surgeon's. She had this expression on her face that unnerved me a little bit because it reminded me a little bit of shoppers at the door of a sale, full of determination and purpose and focus. I remember I would wince inside as I watched her work because it seemed like some of her plants would never recover from her surgery. They looked so spare and forlorn after she was through. But then, weeks later, I was so surprised at the thick green leaves and flowers bursting like fireworks and fruit so replete that the branches could scarcely support them, in the very places where she'd pruned them weeks before. So this parable is about all the ways that God surgically cleans out all the old dead branches in the gardens of our hearts. It's about the way God, who is like a good gardener, knows what is weakening my Christian life. God knows what's keeping it from reaching its full beauty and fruitfulness of which it's capable. It's about the wisdom of God, the understanding of God, and the skill that God, our good gardener, has to bring out the best growth and maturation in me and you. And that leads to the second truth of this parable. Now I'm reading from verses 4 and 5 in John 15. Jesus went on to say, "Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You all are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing." Now, I know that the word abide doesn't really resonate with us today. It's kind of an old-fashioned word. But once again, the Greek word is filled with meaning. The word that we translate abide literally means to live inside and not apart from, to be woven together, and to be sustained. And so when we come to faith in Christ, He lives inside us in this communion that sustains His new creation in me. That's tough for us sometimes because it's contrary to the do-it-ourselves mindset that is so pervasive in our culture and so hard to let go of. It's about this spiritual connectivity. In these verses, Jesus is speaking specifically of you and me as people who are connected to Him once and for all. But here's the rub. We still have the freedom to do our own will. We still have this ability to exit the highway of following Jesus because we think we know a shortcut or maybe a faster and better way to go. And that this is true is why John reminded us that if we who are Christians say we have no sin, the truth isn't in us. And confession is an ongoing, perpetual practice in the Christian life. Amen? And so Jesus is calling for His followers to abide, to keep the connections tight with Him through prayer and worship and communion and obedience. And the truth of this parable is that you and I cannot become whole and holy on our own. We have to be connected to the source of new life itself, in Christ Himself. And then the parable shifts once again to the parts of my life that I haven't surrendered to Christ and that need to be cleansed or pruned. I'm reading verses 6 through 8 now. Jesus said, "Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. And such branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples." And once again, the Greek is so helpful here because it's this part that used to scare me so much. In the Greek text, the sentence does not begin with the word whoever. I think the translators were trying to make these verses fit the preceding verses where I am the branch. But what the verse literally says is this: if not abiding in me, branches are gathered and thrown away. And that is referring to the parts of us that need to be rooted out of our lives. Remember, Jesus has already declared that we are in Him. But these last verses are describing the kind of life I can live when I'm connected tightly to Christ. I can bear a lot of fruit. But more than that, Jesus is saying that my prayer life will be naturally aligned with the will of God when I abide. Now, like all growth and progress in the Christian life, it does take time and effort for that to happen. I think of all the times in my own life that I choose to try it my way first. Hindsight's 20/20, right? But I also keep noticing that the more I go on in this relationship with Christ, I find that God's will and my own does grow closer and closer together. As I go on, I find myself more and more often moved by what moves the heart of God, which is what Jesus meant by when He said, we will get whatever we wish for. And so, people of God, as we grow in this twofold process of catharsis and connectivity, we will find that more and more of the fruits get born in our lives. And we'll experience more and more of His blessings. And then we will experience more and more the difference for God's kingdom that we can make in this world. Amen. And before we sing a hymn together, I want to share a prayer and song. And I invite you to just maybe close your eyes and just make it your own prayer in response to this word from God. The more I go on with the Lord, I find that I cannot afford to stay away from His side. It's in the vine I'll abide. His words are truth and life to me. They cleanse and sanctify me. I know His power can't be denied. It's in the vine I'll abide. A child of God I know I am. I am His through the saving work of the Lamb. Though I haven't touched the hole in His side, it's in the vine I'll abide. Ooh, to bring forth fruit, this is the aim, and give the glory to His name. To do the same we must decide, if in the vine we'll abide. To do the same I must decide, if in the vine